Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it will be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! Snakes in the grass. I've been living in my house for over 10 years now. My next door neighbors were a nice old couple, and I have had a wonderful relationship with them over the years. Nearly a year ago, my good neighbor suffered from a heart attack, and sadly he couldn't make it. And a few weeks after, his wife decided that it was too much for her to stay in the same house without her beloved husband, and decided to move to a different city to be near her daughter, who insisted that she come live with her after her father passed. But the thoughtful lady wanted to live in a separate place to not crowd her daughter's house and be a burden on her. Anyways, they put their house up for sale, and eventually a couple of entitled idiots ended up buying it. They were in their early 50s, and the word rude doesn't even begin to describe how they always treated every neighbor around them from the get-go. Demanded them to do some major changes to their own houses because it's looking bad to them whenever they look at it. Clearly, the wife, Karen, was on the HOA board back in the community they were living in. So yeah, you could get where the demanding part is coming from. She was used to this, and it seems that she got her way most of the time. One day, she came to my doorstep, rang my doorbell, and demanded that I invite her in so she could discuss a serious matter with me. I complied with her nonsense, not because I have to, but just because that's how I was raised. It was all about good manners to me. I let her in, sit her down, and get her some fresh juice. She makes a snarky comment about the juice, but I let it slide. At the end of the day, she's a guest and she's in my house, so I tolerated her nonsense a bit more than usual. Then she starts talking about how her son is planning on getting married 6 months from now, and how he's been looking lately for a house to live in after he ties the knot. More like they are looking for a house for him, since he cannot afford crab himself. They want to buy him a house. Up until this point, I had no idea what the hell I was supposed to do with all of this pointless information to someone like me. I mean, yeah, congratulations and all, but okay. Why are you telling me this? Do you want me to lend you some money, or what exactly do you want from me? I had no idea. That is until she started spouting the most insane, most entitled demands anyone has ever asked of me.
I want to buy your house for my son.
I didn't realize it at first. It went right over my head. I was like, okay, what house? As far as I know, I don't own any houses other than this one I'm living in. So you must have been mistaken about something. Whatever house you're interested in buying, it is not really mine. At the time, I didn't even think that she would dare ask me or anyone else something like what you're all thinking right now. She then asks me,
"Isn't this your house? You're the owner, right? You're not renting it."
"Well, yeah, this house is mine, but what does that have anything to do with what you're asking me about?"
Everything. It has everything to do with what I'm talking about. Because the house I want you to sell me is this house.
I did not believe what I just heard for a second. I had to ask her a couple more times just to make sure she meant this house I've been living in for 10 years now. And when it dawned on me, I couldn't help but ask her, "Okay, so after I sell it to you, where am I supposed to go?" And her answer was,
"That isn't really my problem, is it? I mean, you could go wherever you want to go. I don't know, try another state or something, that's your choice. I don't want to force anything on you."
I just couldn't help it. I jumped out of my seat instinctively and screamed, "Get out!" And she seemed genuinely confused, as if she didn't know what the hell she just said. She asked me,
"What? What is the meaning of this?"
I kept shouting, "Get out of my house right now! Are you freaking mad?" She blurted some nonsense in return on her way out, but eventually went back to her house after she stopped for a bit right in front of mine and started calling me names. And she didn't actually move until I threatened to call the cops and tell them that she was harassing me. After this encounter, she started making my life a living hell. She tried annoying the hell out of me in hopes that she could drive me away from my own home. Even had her brats and thugs to my doorstep and office to intimidate me into selling my house to them. One day I returned to my house and found my teenage kids freaking out and my daughter shaking and crying in the front yard. And when I asked them what's wrong, they said there is a snake in the house. What? A snake? In my house? Since when do we get snakes in this area? It is not even possible seeing things like this where I live. I called 911, I called animal control, and they arrived within 15 minutes after asking us to stay outside. They went in and started searching for it, and after 35 minutes they managed to catch the snake. But they stayed for another 30 minutes to excessively search for more snakes since we had no idea how many of them were there. While all of that happened, most of the nearby neighbors stood by us outside of our house to check what's going on, and some even tried to calm down my kids. They were very supportive, all except our entitled neighbors. They never got out of their house. Clearly, a disaster was happening to their next-door neighbor, but none of them bothered to check what was going on. I knew they were inside because I noticed them looking from behind the window curtains in their house while being weirdly calm about the whole situation. And when I caught myself thinking that they might be responsible for that snake showing up in my house, I felt guilty because I shouldn't be thinking horribly of someone just because I had a bad encounter with them before. I know what you're thinking. But believe me, I myself do not know how I got that far in life with this naive mindset of mine either. But I promise it is not like that anymore. At least not after what happened with these jerks. It took us all some time to start living comfortably in our house after this one incident. We were frightened for weeks, paranoid, and even imagining that the shadows in our peripheral vision were crawling on the floor or onto our beds. It was a traumatic experience to some degree, but we're good now. A couple of weeks go by and I wake up at night to some extremely loud screaming coming from around my house. I jumped out of my bed, checked on my kids, then called the cops even before knowing what's going on. And I told them that I am hearing horrific screaming coming from around my house. Gave them the address and pulled it out to the door. At first I didn't see anything up front, but when I followed the sound, it took me to the back of my house as I suspected, and there she was. Karen is laying flat on her back, screeching like a banshee, and on top of her were two snakes crawling all over her body. I was overwhelmed by what I was seeing, and had too many questions flying across my head at once. But her screaming brought my attention back to her and forced me to focus on getting her out of this situation. I tried to find a long stick or something to get those snakes off of her. I kept trying to push them away and even yelled at her to get up and get away from them, but she kept crying that she has been bitten and that she is paralyzed and cannot move. It didn't take long for the cops to show up. They tried to help her themselves until the EMTs and the animal control arrived. But eventually, the whole situation was contained. Snakes were captured, and she was taken to the hospital, all while screaming about how she's going to get me arrested and evicted from my own house for putting her life in danger by raising snakes all over my house. What she didn't know at the time is that after the first incident with the snake being found in my house, I couldn't really shake the feeling that this was not a coincidence or just bad luck. Yeah, just some random snake decided to wander into some populated neighborhood away from any kind of forest nearby. It wanted to grab a cup of coffee in this one house of ours. Nah, I didn't know how to buy that. I mean, yeah, I was a bit naive, but I don't know. I just couldn't shake off that feeling. So I went and installed a couple of cameras around the house, and I thought that this solution was satisfying for me at the moment. I am not directly accusing anyone of bringing a snake to my doorstep, but at the same time I'm taking my precautions and not fully ignoring my doubts and the alarms going off in my head. But classic me, completely forgot about my cameras. I didn't check the tapes until my son brought it to my attention the next day that hey, we have cameras. We could check what went down last night using them, right? Oh, wow! Cameras, yeah, let's do that. And we were shocked from what we saw on that tape. Karen was sneaking into our backyard with a dirty bag in her hand. She was carrying it very carefully and she was very keen on not getting it near her. She then came near my basement wooden back door that was not in its best shape, by the way, and she started to carefully open the bag bit by bit, as if she's trying to pour what's in the bag into a small hole I had on one of the wooden doors. And of course, as you may think by now, she brought the two snakes in this bag she was carrying, and she was clearly trying to sneak them into my house again. But to her surprise, one of the snakes decided to crawl the other way towards her once he got out. And that was obviously enough to spook her. She panicked and tried backpedaling, but quickly fell on her behind. And that's when the other snake crawled out of the bag still in her hand and decided to have a field trip on her body. It seems indeed that she was bitten a few times after she freaked out the snakes with her screaming. But I later learned that most of them weren't really that dangerous and that she was fine. And that what paralyzed her that day was probably the fear, not the venom. After I was done watching this, let us just say that it's an understatement if I say that my blood was boiling. I took some time to calm down, and after that I got my son to get a copy of the tape, and I took it to the station right away to file a report against her, and well, press charges of course. I won't bore you with what happened next because it took some time and a lot of legal details that an idiot like myself hardly understands, but after taking this whole thing to court, she was found guilty, and eventually, she was sentenced to 10 years in prison, among other things. Plus, we're now filing for a lawsuit to get compensated for the emotional damage we had to endure. Her husband ended up selling their house after that to fund the court fees and for potentially paying me for the recent lawsuit we filed. Plus, it is impossible for them to keep living in this neighborhood after everyone knew what they did to us. And also from what I've heard, their son's fiancé left him after knowing what his crazy mother did to her neighbors. That was some really horrible experience I had to go through with my family. But at least there is a bright side to it. I locked up a Karen, gonna get loads of money from her, and I have an interesting story for you guys to listen to. Next story. Karen calls cops on a dog. Hello, first-time poster, long-time lurker. Decided to post this story as it was my very first Karen. I've had small encounters with Karens in the past, especially when I used to work in retail, but this one definitely takes the cake. Background. Our family had just gotten a dog last year in April named Charlie. He's a sweet, fluffy little boy who loves attention, especially from strangers. The type to approach and ask for them to rub his belly. Prior to having Charlie, our family wasn't involved in the community. Just a few hi's to neighbors here and there, but that's about it. However, ever since Charlie has come into our lives, he has made quite a bit of friends in our neighborhood, making him a very popular dog. Anyways, the first incident happened with my sister and Charlie walking. Now, sister and Charlie were walking in a weird grassy area. It's a walkway in between people's backyards. It's a public walkway, and lots of people go there to walk their dogs. Sometimes you see dogs outside their backyards by themselves, but nothing to worry about as there are big fences blocking them from escaping or possibly attacking another dog without an owner restraining them. Now, this area is not an off-leash area by any means. So of course, Charlie is in his harness. Obviously, this does not apply to the dogs in their own backyard. They can definitely roam as they please. Sister loves taking Charlie there because he loves to say hi to the other dogs. And although they can't really play, he just enjoys seeing other dogs. Now as they go down the path, a golden retriever starts barking at Charlie. No big deal. They are dogs, and sometimes dogs just don't like other dogs. Whatever. The golden retriever was inside and barking from the window anyways. I wasn't with my sister. So this conversation is paraphrased. Enter Karen.
Your dog is aggressive. You need to stop bringing him here.
Charlie is not even barking back, and regardless, the dog is inside and is of no reason to be of concern.
You always bring him here, and you do this on purpose. I have cameras everywhere, and I caught you.
Just to know the dog isn't even Karen's dog. Just a note, the dog isn't even Karen's dog. It was the neighbor's. Go post it on YouTube then. You should just mind your own business.
I will. And you are so fat also.
Okay, Karen, nice stand by the way. Fast forward to my encounter. Now my sister of course warned me of this Karen. Now me and her really didn't think much of it. Maybe just someone having a bad day. And now I start walking Charlie to the same area. So this walkway I should mention is only one way. So you go up the same way and go back down the same way. As I was walking up, I saw a woman and her dog inside their backyard. The woman is on her phone and at this point, I don't even know this was Karen. Just thought it was some random lady. Now her dog is inside her backyard. And of course, Charlie gets excited. He exchanges a couple of looks with the dog and runs up and down the fence. The dog was not really interested. He was an older and bigger dog, just quiet and doing his own thing. Anyways, we continue our walk, and as we go back down, enter Karen again. Keep in mind I'm the only one walking their dog at this time, and I was also on my phone. As me and Charlie walk down right when we get to her backyard, she slams open her fence, yanks her dog out and pushes the dog to get right close to Charlie. Now in my head from what it looks like she wanted our dogs to play, just because she timed it and executed it like that, so I don't immediately notice what is going on. Until I notice that she is filming and start seeing that your dog is attacking my dog. Now I finally realize it's the Karen, and the following conversation ensues.
I'm filming your dog attacking my dog.
Karen says, I was confused, what are you talking about? The two dogs are just looking at each other. Not even a single bark or growl between them. Just being polite.
Get your aggressive dog away from my dog.
Are you stupid? Neither of them are doing anything to each other. You're just trying to create something here.
I'm filming.
Okay, film. You can film the dogs not doing anything.
Your dog is attacking my dog.
You literally filmed yourself taking your dog out of your backyard. To meet the dog you say is attacking your dog? Seriously? Does that even make sense to you? Who in their right mind would do that if that was actually true?
I'm still filming.
Okay, bye Karen. I called sister to explain what happened, and also told parents. In order to avoid further encounters with Karen, we stopped walking Charlie there. Fast forward a couple of weeks, sister gets a call from the police asking about our side of the story. Long story short, sister explains everything to the police and both incidents with Karen. After explanation, the police immediately closes the case, and even goes as far as to say we have a sweet dog and that we can walk Charlie there because it is a public walkway. Crazy Karen thought she actually had something on the video, and it angers me how far she went. Even when we made the effort to just avoid and not confront, we still do not walk Charlie there, even though the police said it's okay. We don't want to risk our beloved Charlie with that lady around, but it felt satisfying that what she wanted didn't happen and she was defeated. Thanks for listening. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.